My wife Judy and I had been married for 15 years, but despite all the love I showered on her, she chose to hurt me and destroyed everything we had. When I first met Judy, she was such a friendly soul. At that time, she seemed to be the kind of woman I was looking for. She was kind, beautiful, strong-witted, and committed to achieving her lifelong dream of being a chef and owning her own restaurant one day. The very first time we met was at a cooking competition. I was invited to be a judge. Although Judy didn't win the competition, I fell in love with her and we continued to talk after the competition. Being someone who loved good food and coming from a family who loved to cook drew me to Judy, maybe because we shared the same passion and interests. And even without telling her, I knew that if we joined our forces and resources together in the future, we would have our own restaurant like she always wanted. Along the lines of getting to know each other better, we fell in love and a new form of relationship started. Judy and I dated for 2 years before I finally asked her to marry me. When she agreed, we began to make wedding plans and plans of surviving on our own after the wedding. Luckily, I got a job with a cooking television show to be their judge, and we could live an easier and more comfortable life from the money I was paid. Judy, on the other hand, worked as a chef for one of the top restaurants in our city. She started as an intern, but because of how good she was at cooking, she got retained. And Judy had been working there for the past 15 years of our marriage. She grew with the restaurant because she was passionate about cooking, and like I said, we had hoped to have ours someday. The first few years of my marriage with Judy were perfect bliss. We did everything as a couple and were happy, but the only thing we didn't have was a child. When we got married newly, Judy and I did not want children yet. We just wanted to settle down well and put things in place before we had our own children, but after 15 years of trying, I figured that it was better for me to channel all of my savings so we could open the restaurant. I decided to do this because I was infertile and responsible for our inability to have children, but I couldn't bring myself to tell Judy. I knew how much she wanted to have kids and saw how she looked at pregnant women, nursing mothers, and her friends' children. But whenever she said we could go ahead and adopt a child if we couldn't make one, it made me feel more at ease. Even without having our own child, Judy and I were very happy. Whenever people asked us why we didn't have any children, we simply told them we did not want anyone, and they'd stop questioning us. Also, to make up for not having kids, I tried to get Judy whatever she wanted. Most times, she'd just be scrolling through her phone, and she'd see something she liked, and before she knew it, I had ordered it for her. I got her clothes, shoes, and show tickets, paid for vacations, and practically did everything so she wouldn't regret being with me. Whenever I was free, I'd do house chores, grocery shopping, cook, clean, and even do her laundry so she wouldn't have anything to complain about. All this while, I didn't tell her that I had been putting money aside for 15 years so it could help us own our restaurant. The money I set aside was supposed to be for our children, but since we didn't have any, I kept saving for our dreams. All of a sudden, Judy's attitude towards me began to change. She preferred to spend more time at work than coming home to be with me. Not just that, within those months, our intimacy level dropped, and every time I tried to touch her, she'd look at me in disgust. I began to feel lonely and abandoned, and I couldn't even understand why she treated me that way. At a certain point, she refused to eat the meals I cooked and wouldn't even come home in time for dinner. And for someone who had spent the last 17 years with her, the rejections really got to me. At night, whenever I tried to cuddle her, she complained about being unable to sleep, but before the time she changed completely, Judy could not go to bed without being cuddled. It was at that point that my gut told me something was wrong. One night, after she rejected me as usual, I turned to my side of the bed and waited for her to sleep. When she eventually slept off and started to snore, I took her phone and checked her messages but could not find anything. At the same time, I got a pop-up notification from Facebook, and when I opened the app, I saw a lot of messages between her and another man. I read the messages from the beginning and was heartbroken to find out that she was cheating on me with her high school sweetheart. From their conversation, I saw they had sex several times and even had dinner together the previous week. I was in a state of shock when I first heard this, but then took screenshots of the messages and sent them to my phone just in case she denied it when I confronted her. The following day, I went to court and filed for a divorce, then returned home to pack my bags. When she returned home that evening and didn't find me, Judy called, confused about what was happening, and told her I had discovered everything. Funnily enough, she did not deny that she was cheating on me. Judy said it was a mistake, and she told me I could not go because she was pregnant with my child. I laughed at her on the phone and told her I was infertile. It was apparent that she was trying to pin her lover's pregnancy on me, but I wouldn't let that happen. I also told her about all the money I had been saving for the restaurant, and when she heard the amount, she began to beg me. Shortly after, we divorced, and she had to deal with her lover's pregnancy alone. Her high school sweetheart broke up with her because he didn't want her to destroy his marriage. Unfortunately, he rejected the pregnancy, and she suffered for the baby alone. I have moved on now, and though it might be difficult to love again, I don't think I'll be able to trust any other woman. Although, if I eventually do in the future, it might be very long. OP, it won't be easy for you to forget 17 years of being together with your ex-wife, but it's a good thing you walked away, at least for your sanity's sake. I'm also glad you did not allow Judy to trick you into taking another man's pregnancy. That was very evil of her. She didn't just stop at cheating on you with her high school sweetheart. She even wanted you to raise another man's child, but in the end, she got what she deserved. I want you to know that you do not have to rush into a new relationship. Give yourself some time, take good care of yourself, and heal properly. As for the money you saved, I'm sure that could go a long way for you, and you could do whatever you want. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Now, let's move on to the second story of the day. My wife and I had been married for 6 years before we went our separate ways. I met May when I was 25 through her best friend, Erica. Erica was a family friend of mine, and we saw each other often. It was even Erica who suggested that I hang out with her one day, the day I met May. So we talked to each other, and we got along well. As of then, Erica was already engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, and they were already planning to get married, so May and I saw each other often because of the wedding plans we had to make. After Erica's wedding, May and I grew closer, and since we were both single and liked each other, we dated. May worked as a nurse in the State General Hospital, while I worked as a mechanic in an automobile shop. The truth remains that I loved May a lot, and after we had dated for a year, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. Before we got married, she moved in with me because I loved having her around, and she always wanted to be with me too. Our families were aware of our relationship, and they knew we meant serious business, so they did not object to us living together. After our wedding, we were able to move into a bigger apartment because we wanted to start a family immediately. Luckily, we had a daughter in the 2nd year of our marriage and a son in the 4th year. We were a happy family, and I knew that my greatest wealth was my family, so May and I worked harder to foot the bills and take care of her children. While my job allowed me to come home earlier and spend time with the kids, May did not have enough time. So most times, she was to work overtime just to make some more money. Also, as a nurse, she did both morning and night shifts, and she often returned home by 2 a.m. every day. Then she'd leave early in the morning again after dropping the kids at school. Because May returned in the early morning hours, she got used to sleeping in the children's room or on the couch, and she rarely slept in our room. I didn't have a problem with that either. As long as she returned home safely, she could sleep wherever she wanted. Also, May slept in the children's room because she had to wake up early so she could take them to school by 6:30. She also believed it would help her bond more with the kids since she was rarely available to spend time with them because they were already asleep by the time she got home. One morning, I realized the kids had not come to jump on me like they did every morning. I checked my alarm clock, and it was 7 a.m., and the house was awkwardly quiet. I went to the living room to check if May had slept off, but when she wasn't there, I went straight to the children's room, and they were still deeply asleep. At that point, I became petrified that something had happened to May because it was unlike her to not return home after her night shift. I called her several times, but she did not take my calls, which made me more scared. Without wasting time, I called her mother and told her that May did not come home, and her mother began to call her too, but she still did not respond. Luckily, I had a next-door neighbor I could trust, so I asked the teenage girl to look after my kids while I drove to May's place of work. I was already halfway to the hospital May worked at when she called me and told me that she had slept off in one of the patient's rooms and she was on her way back. Hearing that calmed me, and I turned back home. Although her excuse did not make any sense to me. She wasn't anybody's personal nurse, so it was weird of her to say that she slept off in a patient's room. She came home that morning and took the kids to school, then left for her morning shift, so we didn't talk about the incident, especially since the kids were around. The following day was a Saturday, so I woke up early and met her cooking breakfast in the kitchen. I brought up the issue of the night she didn't sleep at home, but she became defensive and tried to change topics. I had been with May for years, so I knew when she was trying to hide something. When I saw how she acted, I demanded to go through her phone, but she refused to give it to me. Out of anger, I snatched her phone from her, and I told her I had the right to go through her phone because I was the one who got it for her. Immediately after getting the phone from her, she started crying, and that's when I knew something was wrong. When I went through her phone, I was shocked to see that May was having an affair with Erica's husband, Mark, and the night she didn't come home, she spent it with Erica's husband at a hotel. I was really heartbroken and devastated. When May saw the look of disappointment on my face, she began to say that Erica's husband led her on, and he said he was not happy with Erica anymore. I could not believe what she was saying. She broke my trust and betrayed her best friend's trust. However, as I went through their texts, I discovered they had been dating for more than a year under our noses, and none of us suspected anything between them. I even found out that Mark would occasionally send her flowers and chocolates while she was at work. When I had seen enough, I took screenshots of her conversation with Erica's husband and sent them to Erica. Shortly after, Erica called, and she was crying and yelling simultaneously. She said so many hurtful words to May, and their friendship ended. As fast as I could, I divorced May and got custody of our children. Erica also divorced Mark because she could not take the heartbreak too. I was expecting May and Mark to end up together after we were out of their way, but they didn't. They broke up immediately after. After that, I moved on with my life, and no matter how many times May begs me, I don't think that I'll ever be able to forgive her. OP, I can't believe that your ex-wife cheated on you with her best friend's husband. That's really evil of her. It's a good thing you did not buy her lie and found the truth early. I know it still probably hurts, but what has happened has happened. She chose her best friend's husband over you, and you did the right thing by choosing your sanity and your kids' future. What is very important is that you have got custody of your children, and now you can look after them. I wish you all the best. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.